over on that opposite side.
Copy.
Never in my 10 years of airsofting have I ever had to make as many corrections as I've had to this time around. I don't count you guys as the failures. No, this has got to be something on my part, right? But that's okay. We'll get through it. We'll get everyone passing. And we'll just put all this back behind us, okay? So we got to start at step 1. This is the product overview with myself, Talon from the Airsoft headquarters. And today we are going to be looking at the Elite Force HK416D, the A4 variant. And we are going to make sure that we go through this step by step and make sure that everyone gets their information correct and accurate. Understood? All right. Get your notebooks and pens out because we got a lot to go over before midterms. So all jokes aside, this here is my 416D, the A4 variation that I've had the last several days, and I've put around 50, maybe more total magazines through it. In chrono testing, gas testing, BB weight testing, shooting action testing, and I've gotten to know this gun pretty well inside and out. And in part of the research when getting the information that I need for this video in particular, I have cross-referenced my information with information from other sources. Like I don't know if I can say their name out loud, but one of the other big ones. They use a lot of red all the time. I think that's probably as much as I can describe to them. It's not the first time they've gotten information incorrect or otherwise skewed in some type of manner, but it just gets to a point where now I need to step in and I need to be like, whatever they said is not 100% incorrect, but there's some very distinct things that they either miscommunicated, got wrong, or otherwise did not bring up in conversation. So some of the first immediate things that you guys need to know, because you guys are so sensitive about not watching the videos all the way through, is that these are not standard LM4 parts components. They are utilizing a very different and newer version of the LM4 series. If that piques your interest, stick around. I'll break it open and I'll describe everything to you. The other thing is that in the chronoing of these rifles in particular, the max that we have got it to shoot fresh with a green gas fill is 460 feet per second. And that was like the first time that we cracked one of these opens. It is very consistent that the first several shots are going to be over 400 feet per second. That is a very consistent feature that we have seen time and time again between multiple different models that we've opened and tested. So keep that in mind. The other thing is the guys over at that channel did make mention that these guys are going to be compatible only with the Stanag style of magazines, and that is 100% accurate. But they also were maybe confused as to why the EPM magazines, so the KWA EPM polymer magazines, will not work. They made a point of saying that the polymer magazines will not work in conjunction with this receiver, which is accurate, but they were confused as to why. First of all, with the EPM magazine, they do have that little bump, that little indentation on the front of the magazine. That is intended because the 416D has a flat magwell. That detent or that little flare will not work. It will not lock properly in the fully flat magwell. Compared to every other rifle system, which has a cut, a little diagonal cut in the actual magwell itself. And so that indent right there is designed to keep the magazine under pressure while in the mag well, so it doesn't move around nearly as much compared to the stand egg style of magazine. When we do a side-by-side comparison, can you see the difference in diagonal versus completely squared and flat? And also, I have actually shot, not this one, this rifle at distances of 150 feet. That same channel made claims of putting a target 250 feet away, but they didn't bring up the accuracy or consistency or how it shoots at 250 feet. They were just like, oh yeah, target's off that way, quite a bit of ways. Impressive distance away, right? And then just never bring it back up. So we'll actually talk about how it performs with different BB weights. How about that? Let's get into it. There's 5. So if it is not evident enough, I am a huge fan of Elite Force as a brand and distributor, and I'm also a huge fan of KWA as another brand and manufacturer. So I really like when I get to see both of them work side by side and collaborate with certain projects. And because I like them so much, I am a little more biased. I do think it is my due diligence as a member of the Airsoft community to give you guys truthful, honest, transparent information when it comes to certain products. Well, really all products, but this one especially. So, make it super clear. I do use gas blowback rifles. I do use the VFC Avalons. I do use the KWA gas blowbacks. So I'm a little bit more informed and a little bit more knowledgeable about the internal workings of these guys in particular. Now, if you guys have done any type of research, say on Facebook where I've seen some of these comments and posts, or Reddit or other type of forum setups for airsofters, a lot of guys have actually posed the question, should you pick up the 416A4 gas blowback that's coming out? And a lot of the responses, a shocking number of responses, have been just pick up the VFC 416, which if you're in any other, literally any other market other than the American market, that is possible. If we're in the American market, we don't have a whole lot of options as far as VFC gas blowback options. It is the MP7, the UMP, the SCAR H for gas blowback rifles. I think someone may be kind of having the SCAR L, I think, with Cybergun and the FN license. Not 100%. But I know that we cannot get the VFC gas blowback M4s or 416s for that matter. Now, I have shot a recent production of VFC gas blowback. I wasn't like all that impressed, especially since a lot of the, I shouldn't say a lot, but some of the intention behind purchasing the VFC gas blowback rifles is the aftermarket parts compatibility, which yes, there is a plethora of them out there. You can soup your VFC gas blowbacks up to whatever you want. It's impressive how much you can, modify and adjust some of the features on the VFC gas blowbacks. But when we just can't legally get them into the US, or we kind of need to trick customs in order to get them into the US, that's kind of seen as like a little bit of a red flag, kind of a no-no. And I do like my freedoms that I have here in this country. So I'm not one to push the boundaries too much. So for that reason, I am happy to pick up the 416A4 here and give it a run for its money. And I think due to the frustrations from Elite Force and KWA with how this has come out, and the response from the Airsoft community, I think that Elite Force and KWA, they didn't model this for the airsofter use, because quite honestly, I don't know of a whole lot of airsofters that could handle this rifle, right? I think that this would be way more better designed and advertised and implemented as a training rifle itself. Now hear me out. And I don't mean to be super judgmental, but most airsofters are usually malnourished or a little bit too large. There's only a couple, like, there's a minority that are like the really heavy, well-built, workout often. Like, there's a small percentage to all of airsoft, and I'm not body shaming. I'm not saying that you guys can't get out there and put in that hard work. I've seen you guys do it. I know you can do it. But this is a big rifle, right? This rifle by itself comes in at 6 pounds, 6 ounces, which a lot of you may think is not a lot. To put it into perspective, my LM4 with all of the stuff on here weighs 6 pounds, 6 ounces. This is 6 pounds, 6 ounces without anything on it and not including the magazine. We're getting local guys coming in with their Lancer Tactical Gen 2s and Gen 3s, which are polymer body guns, and they're coming in asking for a lighter rifle. A polymer gun is too heavy for them, apparently. Right? So there's this, you got to know what you're getting into, right? So thinking of just the weight setup and how most guys would set it up and kind of the action that we'll go over later, this is much more designed as a more accurate training rifle. So quick to get in some features or some specs for you guys. This rifle does come in at 6 pounds, 6 ounces. We have a max length of 34.5 inches, and then the shortest length, which I am demonstrating with my A4 here, you can get it as short as 26 inches. So you have like a little bit of a range as far as the 416D setups that you guys would prefer to do. We do have a magazine capacity with the HK style of magazines that it comes in the box with. These are going to come with 44 rounds capacity compared to the standard 40, which would be like the Stanag LM4 style. So the standard LM4 Stanag is going to be just slightly shorter, and there's a slight difference of the HK1 has a little bit more of a softer curve to it versus the Stanag has a hard bend in it. Just aesthetic differences between the two, but you get 4 extra shots in the HK Stanag style of magazine. The inner barrel length is going to be around 250 millimeters. So with the shortest configuration, with that barrel extension taken off, the inner barrel is going to protrude only about 1/2 of an inch from the muzzle here, which is going to be at the gas block. So we have that exposed right there. And like I said before, we did get a capacity or a velocity of a max of 460 feet per second measured with a .20. I also did do the Milsim Joule test, and it did take, with 3 2s, pretty much a whole magazine. So you would have needed to dry fire 40 times before it actually broke into that 1.5 Joule limit, which is what most Milsim events are going to require. Hi, can you thread on for me, please? Bam. And like I said before, this is not a standard LM4 configured internal rifle system. This is going to be just different enough. It's going to look and feel very similar for guys that are used to the current production of LM4s, that these guys are going to be just different enough, right? and lock back. You know what? Just to show why it's doing what it's doing, let's look at the temperature. The thermostat. I hope you can read that. 68 degrees. 68 degrees Fahrenheit. And this actually holds 44 rounds. We gave it a, I think a 20-second break. Round 75 shots before we got to like that burst issue. But hey, you get like a total of 88 total shots. That's something. A We Force Milsim .32s. I don't know why I sound like that now. All right, there we go. What's the joules at? High, 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 high. A little bit lower, a little bit lower. Got higher. Okay, well, I ran out of BBs because I thought that I would pass. How many shots before I can actually pass a Milsim event chrono? Whew. All right, we're at 31 shots. Two. I'm looking for 1.55. All right. Took 39 total shots before we hit 1.52 joules, which is passable, I think, for American Milsim or AMS. So, nice. So, real quick, just so we can get it done and over with, let's do a very quick tip to butt. So, for the gas blowback rifle that I have here, in the out-of-the-box configuration, we do have the KWA spec orange tip birdcage flash hider. This one does have a pin, a little Allen screw, not a pin, an Allen screw that you can remove, and that'll get the entire orange tip out of there. And then we do have a 6-inch barrel extension, which I have since taken off of mine, and that will get you to the shorter barrel length for the Shorty 416D rifle systems. You can also use this as a little newt horn. Kind of cool, kind of kiddie, so you can do whatever you want with that. We do have a gas block. It's a fake gas block. It actually doesn't do anything. What is unique is that this guy does have a hinged front iron sight system. If you guys are familiar with the 416A5 that I've reviewed, the front iron sight was built into that top rail system. This one does have a little locking plate, so you got to push that upwards, and it will lock it into an all the way up position or all the way down position. So pretty convenient. When I was running the little shorty guy here with the LVOA, even with that front iron sight post all the way up, the aperture of the optic was able to look past it, so it did not obscure my vision whatsoever. On the left and right, we do have the sling plates, or not sling plates, but little sling loops. I am running my 2-point sling, but I do have a loop system locked onto the side rail system here. So as you can see, 2-point sling. In this configuration, it is locked to the rifle system itself, so it's not a quick disconnect type of setup. So once that sling is on there, it does take a little bit of time in order to get on or off. So get the sling setup that you like. I liked this setup the best, so it is going to stay on there for now. We have long lengths of Picatinny along the 3, 6, 9, and 12 o'clock position. So ample amount of whatever the heck you want to run on here. It's super easy to mount anything to Picatinny. It's pretty much the standard go-to as far as tactical rail accessories for rifle systems, airsoft or real. So if you can get your hands on it, more than likely it's going to be Picatinny. Then we have the top rail section, which very stereotypical on the 416s to have a raised top iron or top rail system. So on the very back here, above the charging handle, we do have a hook upwards, and that will raise everything. We have found with just doing the airsofting here that it actually provides very good eye relief for guys that are either wearing the mesh masks or even a super low profile full face mask. It has just enough rise to it to where guys can get enough clearance on their optics in order to aim down sights pretty comfortably. I like raised optics to begin with anyway, so having a rail system with a raised optic, extremely comfortable for me as a shooter. It does come with a flip-up rear iron sight, very similar to what would come on the 416A5. You do have adjustments here, but as far as airsoft BBs, you don't really need to compensate for windage because it's just going to take the BB wherever the crap it wants to go. So, but you have it there. So talking about the charging handle, it is going to be a right-hand based charging handle system. So once you get your booger hook on that lip right there, you can pull it back here, but not on the right side of the charging handle here. It is locked in place. So you need to get either one finger on the left side or both fingers on both sides in order to pull that charging handle down and engage that bolt carrier group or bolt assembly, however you want to describe it. If you guys are familiar with real ARs, they are going to operate and work very similarly. Now with the A4 that I have here, it is going to be a right-hand based operating system. The only weird thing is that the dust cover here is going to be polymer in construction. My 2 cents, I think this is because they just had a hard time getting the production of the metal dust covers. So I think in order to like continue production, in order to get these onto the market here in the US, I think they just went with a very quick polymer one. Not that it's a bad dust cover. It still does what it's supposed to do. So I'm not going to give it any type of gripes. The safety selector or fire selector is going to be one of the only ambi systems that you have on the rifle here. So you have it on the left or right hand side. Your bolt release is only available right here where the bolt release is. Your magazine release is where the magazine release only is, and that is essentially it. You got your trigger where the trigger is supposed to be. You have this squared flat mag well here. We do have a plethora of HK licensing because this is an HK product. It's just super simple, very basic. I prefer basic rifle systems. I don't like to be dependent on any of the ambi features or any type of crazy, like the mag pull bad lever or any type of specific magazine release in order to get a little bit faster. Because the reality is, if I grow too dependent on those features and those setups, then I get out of my comfort zone by going to a standard rifle setup. I would rather be able to be the most compatible with a standard basic bare bones rifle and then be able to adapt to the more ergonomic, the more individually spec'd rifle system within airsoft or the real world. It's just going to make things way easier. So since I do have the charging or the bolt carrier group backwards, you could sit in your basement with your beard chin, and you could sit and you could rack the charging handle constantly in order to get that bolt to cycle. However, that just prematurely wears down the internal parts and components, so I don't suggest it, nor would I suggest pulling the charging handle back, engaging that bolt release in order to hold the bolt backwards, and then giving it the HK slap in order to get that bolt riding forward. It's very cool. It has a fun sound to it. It feels really cool. You feel like a big kid, but just don't do that, okay? It just prematurely wears things down, even with the real rifles. So just please don't do that. Trigger, it's a basic trigger. Nothing special to it. The 416A4 is going to come with the newer version of the grip here that is similar to the 416A5. These are a very comfortable grip. I like these grips a lot. I especially am a personal favorite, or I especially personally will grab grips that are going to have a beaver tail up here. Pretty soft stippling on the very sides here and on the very back of the grip. Doesn't really do a whole lot as far as grabbing gloved or non-gloved hands. It's just there, I think, for cosmetics. What is unique is that where the motor typically would go, if you turn 90 degrees, the motor cap will come off, and there we have a battery compartment if you're running like an EOTech or any type of flashlight up here. On my LM4, the hop-up adjustment tool is located in the grip. So it's always on the rifle. Whenever I need to make an adjustment to the hop-up unit, I always have it available. But with these guys, you actually don't need a hop-up tool. And we'll bring that up in just a minute. And that is pretty much the body of the receiver. If we go backwards, we do have the left and right sling plate, so you could clip a single point onto there. The buffer tube is going to have a very large collar, very stereotypical of HK rifle systems to have that thick, large collar. A 6-position, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here, let me do this. I have 5 position stock. Interesting. I knew it wasn't like a traditional 6. I totally knew it wasn't a 6. So a 5-position stock, and I personally have a hard time getting the butt plate off here. But like I just demonstrated, you do have the button on the inside here where that texturing is. Press inwards, and that's going to give you your adjustments. If you want to take the stock all the way off for whatever reason, engage the button, stick your finger into that hole there, and that's going to pull the stock all the way off, like so. But there's no battery space. There's a cap where the buffer tube would sit. So nothing to see back here. And that is it. That is the basic external construction of the 416A4. And so since I showed you guys the externals, I think it's only fair to show you the internals as well. So let's take, for example, this bolt carrier group, or this bolt, from the current production of KWA LM4. I'm going to try to hold it in my hand like so we can get a close-up of it. Notice this extension off the top of the bolt here. And towards the back here, it is just pretty much an extension. Now compare that to the current 416 bolt, which does not have that extension overriding the top of the nozzle here. Also, if we look towards the back, this is not an extension. It features a bevel in order to move, I'm assuming, more easily into that actual buffer tube assembly. It is much harder to show on camera, but both of these are going to be sized very differently as far as towards the front of the nozzles there. They look extremely close, but I promise you, there is going to be very small differences within about 1/2 millimeter, and are going to be shaped just a little differently. So neither of these are compatible in the other's respective gun. Let's also look at the charging handles. We'll notice, for anyone who is familiar with real firearms, the 416 charging handle is going to feature one of the leafs as far as a little wing extension from the body of the charging handle here, and also has a hole in the top. very similar for real firearm charging handles here. The KWA 416 LM4 does not feature a wing, nor does it feature a hole along the top of the body there. Once again, these are not interchangeable between each respective gun. Let us further put a wrench into the system. I'm sure not many of you may remember the Radian Model 1 Blowback rifle, also manufactured by KWA. This again was also described as a LM4 spec system. Now I gotta put this off to the side to punch it out. Here we have the Radian Model 1 bolt carrier group. This is going to feature the same, similar, not the same, similar setup as the LM4D bolt carrier group, where it has the extension over the nozzle and is going to be more of an extension than an actual bevel. Now again, this is not the exact same. This actually has slightly more length to it compared to the LM4 bolt carrier group. So once again, these bolts are not compatible within each other's respective guns. This has to go into the Radian, this has to go into the standard LM4. Let us take a look at the Radian Model 1. This is going to feature more similarly the actual LM4. Please excuse the ambi bolt handle here, the charging handle. It fell off with our model that we have here for the store. But again, is just different enough to where these are not compatible with each other's respective guns. So what we essentially have here is 3 different LM4s that are using slightly different parts and components. Each of these are not going to feature the same type of internal nozzle, valve, or spring setup. Each one is going to be slightly proprietary to their own system. Now the current LM4, which is my standard M4 right here, that has been around for the longest. So most of the parts and components are going to be, as far as what's available aftermarket, are going to be most compatible with this guy right here. This here is the newest on the market, and thus I can't think of anyone that has any parts or components that are going to be most compatible with this guy. We may see in the future here some slight changes. We should also note that the hop-up of each one is going to be spec'd slightly differently. This here is the standard LM4, which has been around for a very, very long time. Everyone is very familiar with it, and you know, there are aftermarket hop-ups for this one. Compared to, let's grab the Radian, because the Radian was the one that is utilizing the newer hop-up system. I'm trying to get it to catch the light just right there. So we may notice that this is going to feature a slight ramp, and the actual dial for rotating the hop adjustment is down here towards the end of my finger. So this one is proprietary, and there currently is no aftermarket parts and components available as far as replacement or upgrades for this setup. The 416D is utilizing the same type of hop-up unit as the Radian Model 1. Same type of ramp and hop-up adjustment knob. Ooh, where'd the light go? That's at the end of my finger. It certainly does do a very good job as far as making sure that BBs do load from the magazine into the hop-up more efficiently compared to the old school KWAs, which, due to the teeth and the force of the bolt sliding forward through here, picking the BB up, it is very high chance that the BBs will actually catch onto the teeth of the hop-up adjustment and will just start to, grind and create paste as your bolt tries to cycle through the BB that got chomped up. While there are certainly issues with this hop-up unit, there are more aftermarket options as far as compatible parts or even replacement parts. Compared to the Radian Model 1 and the current 416D, there's nothing other than the stock factory one, which I don't even know is available on the market yet. We did run into an issue when trying to stage for this next test. I don't know if you can, oh, come on. Come on. Come on, camera. Work with me. That white ball down there is a BB, and it is stuck there. And it got jammed inside there when I was inserting a fresh magazine. And so that did lead to it ejecting all of the magazine from the gas because it prevented the bolt from cycling effectively. So it did chunk inside of there. It was the first BB issue so far during this whole video process. And you know, I'll keep track, but so far it's the first one, and I've shot, I want to say maybe close to 20-ish mags through it so far in the process of making this video thus far. And I'll let you guys know at the very end of the video how many other issues I've run into, because now I'm like in the shooting stage of the video. Oh, hey, bet you didn't see me. I'm in my totally hidden, definitely no one sees me sniper hide. I have no idea where that landed. One more time. All right. I'm just gonna hold where I've been holding. That went way high right. All right, one more time. Just kidding, one more time. Because I think that was shot number 5. Maybe about like 80 feet or so. Not quite 100, more than 50, but yeah. Oh no, the bad guy, he's hidden halfway behind a tree. Let's take him out. Short. About a headshot. Oh no. Right about there. What the heck? So the conclusion was that this rifle does not perform well. It performs well enough, right? It works as an airsoft gun. Now I was using .32s through a gas system where we have to allow for a little bit more inconsistencies in the gas volume, which is going to result in a change of velocity, but also the amount of air pressure that can send the BB out of the barrel with any amount of force. Not only that, we also have to deal with the fact that there's an abundance of silicone oil mixed into those gas particles, which is going to change the amount of friction that is applied from the hop-up unit. Not only that, but you can probably see in the background that the leaves are moving a little bit farther left and right, so there is a little bit of wind variance, and we're in between 2 separate buildings at different positions, so there is going to be a change in the crosswinds. All in all, this was not a very good test. So we're gonna take this down to the airsoft arena in a controlled environment. We gotta take it indoors. We gotta have like a controlled testing area to really nail down what's happening, because the crosswinds right here don't allow for good consistency. Let's kick it out indoors. Shoot the 4.0s at 25. I'm gonna hold, you know what? I'm gonna hold the high left, our high left target. Well, it did not like that. Okay, we got a little bit of a weird gassing issue, and I suspect that has to do with the heavier weight. But just in case, we've got a fresh can of green gas. But otherwise, you know, all the shots ended up right there. Okay, and then we'll kick it out to 50 feet, which from right there should be right about here-ish. We should be all good to go. I am gonna aim for forehead. I'm gonna hold my crosshairs on the forehead. We do need a better shooting platform. This is very wobbly. You see the amount of gas that's coming up from the side here? That is very much not normal if you use a lighter weight. So I'm just guessing that the .40s are not going to perform the best in that gas blowback. Even though it is shooting at a higher velocity, I'm just assuming that it is accounting for more gas to go behind the BB. And speaking of the BBs, we have our 5, which I was aiming here, impacting right here. Now, I'm just gonna kick this. We're gonna try to aim for that. That is 100 foot from where the camera is set up right over there. If I turn the light on, if I shoot with the light, oh, you guys can kind of follow that on the camera there, the big camera, this guy. All right, let's do that then. All right, I think I need to be, based on where the shots are, I think I need to be right here for 100 feet. Yep, just over, just under. Okay, I'm holding in the same spot. And there we had like a weird skippy thing. Okay, I'm going to top off the magazine with more gas. Let's try to aim for the super far target. And I'm gonna try to aim right where I thought I was going to. In fact, I'm gonna give it a little more assistance. I'm gonna be a little more generous. We only got 3 shots. Okay, but we did see that there was a weird gassing thing coming out of the bulk carrier group here, out of the ejection port. So, I'm gonna swab the inner barrel, dry swab it, and then I'll put lighter weight BBs inside of a different magazine so we don't have like a type of cold gas magazine inconsistencies, and then we'll do pretty much the same test. Let's go do that. And 5 shots in the dome. Oops, I was not recording on this camera. Oh wait, no, I was recording. It just says I have 1 minute left. No way! You and me, GoPro. Okay, aim in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots. And if we compare that to the original 5, you know, we're shooting 2 5s compared to 4 0s. So the 4 0s are going to have more consistency, a much tighter grouping compared to the 2 5s, which we're not having that same gassing problem. And you know what? It's 25 feet, so it's going to be a little bit harder to miss your target at 25 feet. Okay, well, I'm on a roll, and I don't want to pause to fix this. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to aim for the body at 50 feet. We are getting a little bit of gas. I take it back. We are getting a little bit of gas. All 5 shots are right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was aiming here. These are our impacts. You know what? Compared to the 4.0s that landed here at the same distance, size-wise, we're not that far off. Now let's take this out to, we're going to aim for center mass. So we got a little bit of a skip here. I think probably from the wood bouncing around weird. So we're going to disregard these 5 and this one, and we're going to kick this out to way over there. And then we're going to try to see if we can get anything on paper, while also aiming for the 100-footer. How about that? Just you, just me, the gun, a lonely environment, talking to myself, talking to you guys like I'm crazy. Do you know how crazy that is to just be in a wide open space with no one around, just talking to yourself? It's weird. I'm gonna be honest, it's a little weird. I have no card space. You guys are running out of battery. We are aiming for 100-foot target. The gong, if you will. We're just going to try to hit it a couple of times. Way high. Miss on 5. Miss on 6. Miss on 7. Miss on 8. Miss on 9. Miss on 10. 4 out of 10 shots. Let's just try to hit the target. High. Oh, that was top right, small circle. Miss, 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 miss. It hit. That was way high right as well. I saw that like nick the edge of the paper. It hit. Miss, miss, miss. And that was our last shot. All right. Let's run down there real quick. So oddly enough, we missed 6 total shots on the gong, but we had a plethora of successful hits. We have, on the body at least, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like 6 shots right here. So one of these is extra. I think it's that one right there. Hit right here, hit right here, hit right here. A hit. This is the one that we need to disregard. We had a hit. We had something skip right here off on the edge. It looks like this one's new. There's a hit up here. I don't think anything hit on the right here, but I know that there was like I think it was actually that one, where it just hit the edge here and it flexed the entire paper here. So we had relatively a good grouping size here. I mean, like, we could like, if it's like a big dude, because this is like a small profile target. If it's a big dude, we can hit him no problem. And that's also a 12-inch gong, so that's going to be, you know, relative to my shoulders. And it's only 12 inches. Only 12 inches, like I know what I'm talking about. So I think that's in a controlled environment, right? In a controlled environment, I think that did really well. So, in conclusion, so obviously I am going to be a little bit more biased towards KWA and towards Elite Force. I mean, those are my 2 favorite brands of the rifle systems that I will run. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. The only thing that you got to give me some credit for is that these rifles were not provided to me by KWA nor Elite Force. These are ones that I just picked up and I was like, I'm going to do my due diligence. I'm going to give you guys the information that you guys deserve. And I'm just going to let you guys know my 2 cents about it. Now, I have not actually fielded it because no field would allow you guys to run it as a rifle system. I did have conversations with Elite Force, who is distributing this rifle system, and in the conversation it was made pretty clear that higher velocity was a pretty common occurrence with these systems and something that was not accounted for. I'm assuming that during the factory process they may have run out with springs, very similarly to that desk cover system here that was, or typically is, a metal construction, but it's now a polymer one. So I'm assuming they may have either run out of the springs or they reordered the same springs, but the source where they get the springs went through a different production process and thus they ended up with a different tension of spring. I don't exactly know what the story is, where the miscommunication occurred, but it seems pretty clear that these guys, and maybe for the foreseeable future, may be shooting a little too much. This was a similar issue that we saw with the Radian Model 1, where it was a newer gas blowback LM4 system. Again, just a little bit different compared to the standard LM4s. And again, shooting just a little too much. I mean, it was right at the border of velocity, but it did break that Joule limitation. This guy breaks both the velocity restriction and the Joule restriction for even outdoor fields. So I think that this needs to be put into the category of maybe firearm training for those who use HK rifle systems, whether it be a civilian, law enforcement, or some type of training setup. Ammunition is not getting any much cheaper. Inflation is a real thing. So in order to conserve cost of ammunition, I mean, of the 50 total magazines that I put through it, and I collectively have 4 magazines that I used for the testing process. 2 of them, the standard LM4 Stanek magazine, and 2 of them are going to be the standard HK, the ones that are going to come with the gun here. Now, in the actual shooting demonstration down at the arena, when it was all closed up, so I wasn't shooting at people, I did drop both of my standard LM4 magazines. Both of them had the actual feeding lips crack and break, and one of them actually had the upper part here crack and break. Because of my standard LM4, my regular AR model, I have a plethora of the nice EPM gas magazines, and I have pre-ordered spare parts for those. So I have spare feed lips available for those. But because I don't usually run Stanek magazines, I didn't think it necessary in order to have rebuild kits for these magazines readily available. So unfortunately, these are currently in a busted configuration, and I ended up finishing the entire shooting evaluation with just these 2 magazines, which I made extra careful not to drop and break. So between all 4 magazines, I would estimate I probably used 4 to 6 total gas canisters, like the Valkent and Elite Force canisters that I have here, which is pretty normal. You always have to account for the consumable gas in order to get the action to work. So that wasn't so much of a problem. In the 50 magazines that I shot through this, there was only one incident where it did do a double feed on me, where the BB from the magazine did get lost somewhere in the actual upper mechanism of the rifle up here. So yank this back. So somewhere up here is where that BB got lodged up and was unable to, and I was unable to work and operate the bolt assembly because the BB was physically obstructing. The LM4 that I have back here, those are going to be a little bit more finicky because they're using the older school type of hop-up unit assembly, versus these guys are going to be the more current hop-up assembly from KWA. So in the process of using 0.20s, 0.25s, 0.28s, 0.3, 0.32s, and 0.40s, I had just the one. And honestly, I think that was probably my fault because I was speed loading these magazines, and I think I didn't press all the way down. And so it had like 2 step up, one from each other. So when the bolt came forward, in order to load the fresh magazine in, it would have picked up both BBs. And I think that's where I went wrong. By my mistake, I didn't make sure that the BBs were all the way in. So that one jam, I believe to be a user error, versus my LM4. If I use anything other than a 0.25 gram BB, it's going to jam, it's going to double feed, it's going to lock itself up because it cannot handle the other weights for whatever reason. And I don't know. They'll just get caught up and just prevent it from working. I don't know. The most effective weight that I have found to be usable with this rifle system is going to be a 0.28 to a 0.30. You can go lighter than that. However, you are going to see a little bit of an overhopping, even with the hop-up turned all the way off. With the hop-up turned all the way off, the 0.28s seem to fly the straightest. 0.3s required a little bit of more fine-tuning in order to get that hop effect that we typically look for. And then 0.40s were just too much gas, or required too much gas in order to get out of the barrel, and ended up dropping sooner before they hit the target. So .28, .3s are going to be your best friend when it comes to these guys in particular. Some of the weirder quirks when it comes to this rifle system in particular is when you pull the charging handle backwards, the entire nozzle is going to come backwards with it. That's a pretty normal process when it comes to this rifle in particular, I've discovered. The charging handle is going to use a more realistic charging handle compared to a real rifle system. The LM4s and the Radium Model 1s are going to be very different. They're going to be utilizing their standard charging handles. So because this one has that hook down feature, it will actually drag across the top of the nozzle here. I'm going super slow, so maybe the camera can pick it up. So notice how the nozzle doesn't travel or doesn't continue to stay in the hop-up unit. It will travel backwards with the charging handle. Versus when I pop the rear receiver pin, like so, keeping the charging handle downwards, but manually pulling the actual bolt here, the nozzle continues to stay stuck in the hop-up unit. That's what you want. That means that there's going to be a good seal from the nozzle to the hop-up unit, and that it's going to deliver all of the gas behind the BB. That is exactly what you want. For more realistic operations, however, they made it so where the nozzle is going to travel with the charging handle. Compared to the LM4, which charge, nozzle stays stuck until it reaches about that breaking point, about halfway up the dust cover there, which also is going to be a good seal, but not super realistic when you need to do that halfway bolt pullback in order to make sure that there's a round loaded, right? That realism is somewhat lost when utilizing the standard LM4s. The other weird thing is when you are doing that more realistic charge setup on this rifle system is if you have a partially loaded magazine and you try to do that cool guy check, it is going to drop the BB from the hop-up unit. So now you've actually induced a jam into the system because now you have a BB that's rolling around somewhere in your chamber here. So when you go back forwards in order to load the next BB up from the magazine, it doesn't pick that loose BB back up. It gets jammed up somewhere. And when I was doing those cool guy target acquisition shooting drills, that happened to me twice. And so that actually lodged 2 BBs into the hammer assembly down here. And so that's how that occurred. So when you are doing, while you can do the cool guy charge check, you actually don't want to do that because that will induce a malfunction. And in most cases, when it comes to gas blowback malfunctions, you got to do some type of field strip in order to get fully disassembled in order to find where the BB or BBs are. The only other thing with this gas system is that it does get very dirty very quickly. More than once, I would say probably half a dozen times during one day, I would have to dry swab that inner barrel. You don't want to put oil on the swab when you clean it because it's gas blowback. There is going to be silicone oil inside of here. I would not suggest using propane because propane is going to be too dry. And if this gets too dry, it is going to induce even more malfunctions. So you want to use green gas, and then maybe halfway through the day, if you're playing with this or doing whatever training, put some more silicone oil inside there. You got to consistently dry swab that inner barrel in order to get that oil material off the bucking and out of the inner barrel in order to continue to get that hop effect. The final conclusion that I have for this rifle system right now is that it is a very good shooting gun. It's shot very straight. It's performed very reliably. It's an absolute shame that it is shooting so hot directly out of the box. I've tried in order to install a low power valve from the LM4 systems into the nozzle system here. It did get it under, but it got it under for only a dozen or so shots before the gas magazine completely gassed itself out. So we're currently in a holding pattern. I was informed that there are going to be other shops that are going to be trying to 3D print newer gas valves for this rifle system in order to get it indoor legal. I have tried with other rifle systems in order to get a good balance of different tension springs, different valves in order to get it shooting field legal. Nothing super successful. So I'm going to let some of the other shops try to figure this one out. I'm going to let you guys know when I do get any more information, what works inside of here, because I want this gun to work for field limits. But for right now, I think it does a much better job as far as getting those people who don't have proper firearm training, can't afford proper firearm training, or maybe are too busy in order to get off of work for only a couple of days or even 4-day weekend in order to go do those firearm trainings. So I think this is going to be one of the better systems in order for those cost-effective measures for guys that just don't have time, or for individuals that don't go to the range. They live in the city, they can't physically go to the range. This is something that they can implement at home, at friends' houses, in order to, just stay within the loop of firearms. For airsofters, this probably is something that I would not suggest due to the higher cost associated with continuing to operate this system, the heavier weight that most airsofters can't accommodate for, or maybe have a harder time dealing with for longer periods of time. And just the fact that currently with the current systems that we have, we can't get this to field legal restrictions. So it's a great gun. I would push someone towards getting this for that training setup. Guys that do law enforcement, guys that do military, guys that do civilian training, this is a really good system. If you're local, come check it out. I'll give you the rundown on it. You've seen me shooting it, operating with it. These are my 2 cents on how it operates and how it works. And I've given you guys the information that Airsoft GI maybe had a harder time giving you guys. So if you guys appreciate the transparency and the honesty and the work that I've done in order to, get the information out to you guys accurately and somewhat timely, leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe. It helps the channel out. It helps me out. And if you have any further questions, put them down in the comment section below. If you want to do more one-on-one stuff, you can reach out via Instagram or Facebook, or even go to our website, airsoftheadquarters.com, and fill out one of the contact us forms, and then we'll get back to you in a fairly timely manner. But other than that, we are all set. Stay tuned for any more information that may come out with these guys. I will do my best to stay on top of any other things that come out for this guy. But as of right now, we're just in a current holding, just waiting setup. So we just gotta wait. That's it. So you guys take care, stay safe, stay positive, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.